seekers, to yet another episode of the Straight Shooters. My name is Todd Brii, and with me, as always,
is Itai Todd.
And that's right, the Thunder from Down Under, as we like to call him.
As nobody ever called me ever.
Oh, yeah. Real quick, just want to remind everybody to like, share, subscribe, and comment. Say it again. Like, share, subscribe, comment, share, subscribe. I can't do it backwards. Doesn't work that way. I'm pretty bad at that. So we have yet another guest with us today. I've worked with her several times on some independent films, and currently she can be seen on a billboard on just off the 5th Street Bridge for the film You Like to Draw, done by none other than me and Brii.
Certain Todd E. Brii.
Todd E. Brii guy. So anyway, yeah, you can catch her in You Like to Draw. She plays Ellen. She's the lead in the film. And Brii, thanks a lot for coming on with us. Really appreciate it. It's good to have you. I just want to let you know when Itai started asking me, who do you want to have? Who do you want to get? And I gave him a list of like 4 or 5 people, and your name was on that list. So I got you.
I guess I made the cut.
So
you definitely did.
Yep. So now, Brii, why don't we just start with giving us a little background on how you got into acting, kind of schooling and stuff like that, and tell us about yourself.
All right. Well, hi, my name is Brii Frank. I'm currently 25 years old, and I've kind of been like a camera ham all of my life. And there was a brief period where I wanted to be a veterinarian, but basically my whole life I've just wanted to be an actress. And so I didn't really have a chance until I moved to Colorado, and then I got into some community theater and did some stuff with my middle school before they cut the arts department. And then in high school, again, lots and lots of theater. And after I graduated, I started doing movies. So, I've kind of just been doing this shit my whole life. I don't know what else to say.
Well,
your whole life so far.
Your whole life so far. Yeah, it's got to be 25 years old again, right?
Yeah.
And
that stings.
And a little bit, yeah. So Brii, let's go back to junior high. What was the first role that you took on as a thespian? Oh, come on, you can tell us. Do you remember?
Well, I'm trying to think, technically, okay, in middle school when I was doing theater, before that I had done church plays and stuff, I guess, but officially, so in middle school, my director at the time only did he wrote his own stuff, and we would do that. Mm-hmm. And he would ask us what kind of characters we wanted to play. And we did, I think it was called the Superhero Spectacular, where he had us each lay out a superhero or a villain we wanted to play. And I was emo back then. So I was I'm gonna be a vampire villain. That's what I'm gonna do. But officially, after I got into more serious theater, my first official character role with speaking and singing parts was in the Alice in Wonderland musical. And I played the March Hare. So I was one of the Tea Party members.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And how was that experience for you in that first big role, I guess, if you want to call it? That's a big role. So, how was it for you personally? What stirred up inside you?
I was super excited just to be able to sing for 5 minutes, you know what I mean? To be able to speak and have lines and be able to like, because my best acting during that era of my life was always comedy. And so I've become very good at making people laugh and delivering lines like
your timing is really good.
On a cue that will, I guess, elicit the most laughs. So being able to just be that person was really very fun for me. I liked making people laugh a lot.
So all of this was on stage, I assume, yeah? Not
yes.
Yeah. So having come from sort of more stage plays and then moving into movies, how do you feel about that? How's that sort of difference? You know, one of them is in front of an audience, and the other one is really in front of a camera. I assume it's a very different experience.
It's a very, very, very different experience. Like acting on stage, you have to be more pronounced and loud, and you have to make everything just has to be bigger. Your movements, your facial features, your voice, like everything has to be bigger, better, louder on stage. And you're above the audience, which like for someone like me who has anxiety is very helpful to be like above them, away from them like that. And on camera, you kind of have this opportunity to be more subtle with like your facial expressions and like what your eyes are doing and like what your hands are doing. Like when you're acting on the camera, you have the opportunity to kind of make those big things happen in a smaller way.
How hard was Go ahead. Itai.
I was just going to say, as well as make mistakes, because you can, cut and do it again on stage. You can't do that. So, yeah.
That's also very true. That's also very true.
Well, I was, I mean, how was it having to dial it back after doing so much stage work and then doing your first film? How hard was it for you to dial it back? I mean, because you don't have to dial it back just a little. You gotta like cut your performance, I guess, in half compared to what you're doing on stage.
I think it's just like a whole different ball game, really. Like acting for film is an entirely different kind of acting than acting on stage. And I think because my first film was silence. So the first time I was ever in front of a camera like that, we were entering the building and it was like all four of us, but I was walking with Elizabeth. But I remember just like having like a whole bunch of anxiety because it was just like a whole different, like I wasn't really, like I kind of understood the concept of it, but like walking into it with all of the cameras and the boom mic and like lots of extra people everywhere. And like, yeah, you can mess up, but also you should definitely be prepared to like deliver stuff consistently. And like, that's something I've learned over the years is that I don't spend as much time in my script for movies as I should be, because like, yeah, you can make mistakes, but you shouldn't. You should be prepared to do the best that you can, no matter what the situation is, I guess. And that's totally a tangent. Sorry. But like, I feel like I was just very anxious. So I don't really remember that first day, like dialing back my acting at all. I just like remember being very overwhelmed by the change of pace, I guess.
Well, it doesn't show in the film, so that's good.
Well, that's great. That makes me feel better.
Well, and having done as much rehearsing as we did, because we rehearsed probably for better part of a month or so, at least a couple times a week, if I remember correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we rehearsed quite a bit. But then as well, it was kind of cool because you and the other actresses in your friends group really, you guys hung out. I mean, from the time we cast you, I think it was like 3 months or better when I cast everybody. And then I don't know whose idea it was to start hanging out, but all four of you just kind of dove in, and you guys hung out like literally. And am I wrong to say you guys were hanging out like daily?
Not at all. I think we were definitely like attached at the hip from the start, really.
What was that like for you to dive into something like that? I mean, you didn't really know anybody to speak of. You kind of knew. You tell me a little bit about the whole process of the four of you getting together and kind of starting making those friendships. So when you guys got on camera, they were real.
Well, I kind of knew Elizabeth from high school.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of actually, this is kind of funny. She kind of stole like what I had hoped would be my last hurrah role in high school from me. Due to like stupid drama with like teenagers, you know how they are. And like, I didn't like her really all that much, but then like, I don't know. I feel like we just like instantly had a pretty good connection because we had that history together already. And like, after like actually getting to like sit down and talk to her, I think we just really bonded, you know? And then like, I remember, so this is so funny because we have talked about it after the fact. Every time I meet up with them again, we talk about it and like how, oh my gosh, like I had all of these feelings about you. And I walked into the first table read late. Like I was super late and everybody was already there. And I was like already nervous because I was like, oh, this is my first like movie table read. This is going to be nerve wracking as shit. And then I walk in and like everybody just turns to look at me super quiet. And I'm like, oh God, everybody already hates me.
The whole cast was there. Yeah, you were like 20 minutes late, I think it was.
Oopsie daisies. But Emily actually told me that she saw me and she was like, I'm not going to like this bitch. And we ended up being like very good friends. Like, honestly, I think I walked out with all of those friendships really loving the connection I had with each one of them individually and as a group. But I think like the connection I had with Emily was just like the deepest for me because we're closer to the same age than everybody else was. And we had already like been through life things, major life events. And so I think that really brought us together. So I think it's funny that she saw me and she was like, I'm not going to like her. And I'm pretty sure I thought the same thing about her. Actually, I was like, who is this bitch?
I thought the same thing about Todd.
Which is kind of funny.
It looked very, very natural. I knew that Todd was shooting in Grand Junction or, you know, sort of like a smallish town. And I thought you guys were all from the town, all knew each other and all that. And I thought, yeah, it's just what it looked like. It really worked well. So it's interesting to hear that.
Like by the time we started filming, we had already hung out independently, even of just like read-throughs and stuff like that. And that was the intention at first when we did start hanging out, was like, let's get together and like talk about like our characters' backgrounds and how they're friends and like, you know, how like read through some of our scenes together just to kind of get our lines down. And then it kind of like quickly evolved into like that friendship. So by the time we were at day one, we were already like, yeah, let's kick ass and take names because we're already friends. Like it was pretty cool the way we ended up there so quickly.
Well,
yeah,
and that
it really, really did work.
And it shows. That was one thing. Jess Norvesgard, which we just interviewed here recently. You can check out that episode on the Straight Shooters channel on YouTube. He said that, you know, in watching Silence, and it was kind of nice getting another perspective from somebody who didn't really know any of us. And he watched the movie here probably about 3 weeks ago. And one of the things that he told me was that the four actresses together really came across as friends. It was totally believable. He said, even big budget movies, you see people, you can tell nobody knew each other going into it. and that was something. I mean, and this and he's Jess is pretty pretty seasoned as a camera guy, and even though he's kind of a new director, he's still pretty knowledgeable in that sense. So it was kind of cool to hear from somebody that I didn't really know and giving me feedback on the movie. And he just really had a lot of good things to say about the four of you. And especially he even brought up you, yours and Elizabeth's friendship. He said it really came across as real. So that was a pretty cool thing to hear about that.
Yeah, I think like screen chemistry is like a super important part of making a good movie. Like you can't like force people to look good together. Like that chemistry has to come on its own. And I think like if you can get that in your cast to begin with, it'll translate on screen and it'll make your movie just like that much better. You know what I mean? Like it's like the cherry on top.
Yeah.
You can have like the best actors in the world coming together, but you know, if they don't have the chemistry, they just don't. That's just how it is. But I think that's something that's super important.
Perfect example of that is the 50 Shades movies. The two actors, the main actors in that movie had zero chemistry. Brie, when you bring up the importance, I mean, it's important that, you know, you got to discover that stuff as a director. And a lot of times, you know, everybody's worried about getting name actors versus people that actually have chemistry on screen. So, you know, that was one thing that when these ladies started to read, after they had been hanging out, when we did a couple of table reads down the road after everybody had started hanging out, I was just like, holy shit, wait a minute. Are we sure they didn't know each other? You know, I didn't say it out loud, but it was one of those things that I was watching. I'm like, oh,
Thought we pulled a fast one on you.
yeah.
And Todd was just kind of patting himself on the back for, you know, good casting job. And
well, I mean, you know, Brie, you've been around for a few films, so, you know, I mean, casting, you know me, I cast everybody first and then I write my script. So I do everything kind of bass-ackwards a little bit. But yeah, Brie came across, her character was probably one of my favorites because I just felt the real, you know, the realism that she was kind of exuding as being somebody who was very outgoing and, you know, flirtatious with boys and didn't have a problem talking about sex and all that stuff. And then to have that arc, you know, because one thing in Silence, I wanted to make sure that the whole point of it was to make sure that after Elizabeth's character was attacked, that everybody changed up, you know, everybody, because that was one thing in putting that movie together that I wanted to show. And that was one thing that Brie really, really did. Can you tell me a little bit about prepping for Jenna?
Yeah, I think it's important to always mention that I wasn't originally Jenna.
Oh,
and I think that everything happened for a reason there.
Yeah.
Because you wanted me to play Liz originally, which is like pretty much the opposite of Jenna.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I thought about that one.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I have to say, thinking about it now, that's a pretty good switch. Because Jenna is just, you did perfect there. And I keep thinking maybe if it was switched, it wouldn't have been as effective. Because the thing about Jenna's character is that she is out of the group, she's the best friend. and you did that. Like I know she's more outgoing and talks about sex and guys and all of that, but there was something realistic about the care that you had for your best friend and what happened to her. That really, really worked well. So I don't know if somebody else would have done as well in that role. I thought that everybody ended up where they should have. That was really, like, it really, really worked well.
I agree with that. I think the best friend aspect for me, like, is the realest part of me in Jenna, is because, like, as a friend, I'm like fiercely loyal and like almost to a fault sometimes. Like, I will defend my friends until the earth is burning to the ground. And I think that I wanted to give that to Jenna because that is something that is so important for the movie as a whole, is to represent those relationships that people had with whatever. What is her character's name? Elizabeth's character. I can't even remember it anymore.
Caitlin.
But like Caitlin, right? Duh. Caitlin, like her. That's the point. Is like, not only was this young woman like completely traumatized, but like every person around her also experienced a shift like that. And like, that's what happens in real life when you experience something extremely traumatic. Like the person is going to have some deep trauma that goes with that, and they're going to have a long journey of healing to go for, but there's something that's like just irreversibly changed in the people around that person afterwards. And I think that
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say,
go ahead.
Bringing that relationship into the characters was like super important to the movie. So like, that's the realest part of Jenna. That is me. All of the rest of it's fluff compared to like who I am as a person in real life, except for that.
Because what stood out to me was the sense of how protective, Jenna was of Caitlin, and also how helpless she felt when wanting to help her after everything happened. So that was really, realistic. That really hit across, from watching the film, because we reviewed it back a while back now on my indie production.
It had only been out
so,
about 6 months when Asaf did his review on it and put himself in the picture and dancing with Tony.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember that actually. Yeah.
Yeah, he did that for every film he reviewed. That was a lot of fun. Not necessarily the face, but he put himself in the picture somehow, and yeah.
Well, he replaced he replaced Elizabeth's face with his face. So
yeah,
it was
when she was dancing with her boyfriend. So that was interesting.
Yeah,
because he was a bit tentative about that, because the film is very, very serious, and here he's sort of injecting a bit of comedy into, just even promoting the review. But the review was serious, so yeah.
Well, and it was that was one thing that I really loved about Jenna's vulnerability. She seemed as though she had it together. And even though after everything happened, she still tried to have it together. And then after the conversation that she has when she took Tony to see him, or to see her for the first time.
The one in the car?
Yeah. Yeah. When she told Caitlin, she goes, this didn't just happen to you. This happened to all of us. And when she goes outside and just completely has a meltdown in the middle of the street.
I forgot about that part. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was before we shot when you got kicked out of the car too. So we
did that part. That was the last thing we did that day, and we had done the running before that. I remember, it's so funny because like you were in the back of the van or whatever, right? And I don't even remember how we were cueing action. I think you were on the phone or something like that, but I would like run out into the street and like run down the street, and you'd be like, okay, cut, take two. And then I would like run back to the house, and I would like open the door, and like everybody would be sitting inside. Like it was almost like office style. Like they would look at me and be like, going for another one? Yeah, I'm running again. Just like out of breath every single time. I mean, it was just so funny. Like every time I would come into the house again, they'd be like, are we doing it again? Yeah.
Yeah, we only did three takes of that, and the third one was the one because basically I was sitting in the back with the Steadicam, and then Brii would run out in the street, and we'd be driving, and then I had to hit the car for the guy that was driving for him to stop, and then I'd stand up because I was sitting in the back with the hatch up, and then I'd stand up and get out of the car and then kind of do a pseudo crane shot, and then got back in the car, and just, he already knew that when I sat back down that he just took his foot off the brake pedal, and we just kind of slowly moved away from him. But you know, when we did that, I knew I wasn't going to try to get Brii to do that more than 2 or 3 times. And the first time, I think when we pulled out, I just told her, I said, you know what, cut, this isn't going to work. Because we didn't even get a full blown run in yet. And every time I had to ask these ladies to do something that was like super emotional, you can't, I mean, you know, Brii, you can't do it more than a couple of times, because then after that it just seems forced. I don't know, how did you feel about that one?
I just like, for me, it's always like, I will go until you tell me to stop. So like that's sort of, I guess, on the director. If they want to keep pushing me, I will keep being pushed until we are good. So I don't really remember, but I remember like entering the house like out of breath, and everybody just staring at me like, so how did it go? And I'd be like, I can't talk right now, I gotta do it again. That's the most memorable part of that entire sequence right there, is just the entering back into the house and having like everybody just staring at me like, hey guys.
It's definitely one of the sort of memorable scenes in the film. I remember it because Asaf and I had a conversation after watching it, and I remember saying to him, most of the film, the drama is kind of understated, and in that one it just shoots up almost into like a melodramatic kind of scene. And I said, in any other film this probably would not have worked. In here it works. And he was saying the same thing. He's like, yeah, I was looking at it and I'm thinking, is this sort of a little bit over the top? No, it's not. It works here. And that was a sign of how kind of we felt about the movie. Just everything about it seemed to kind of work. A lot of things where you would think in an indie film would not work, worked in this one. So it really put the point across. And I think a lot of it was to do with, with that sort of the group of actresses, the 4. That was really, really good.
I think it was all of the elements of it put together. Like the writing of the script was very, very good. And then you had Todd, who has like experience doing like camera work and stuff like that already. And like we had him working with us, and then we had all of us working together. I think bringing all of those different elements together really created a really good movie. I think that everything ended up working out exactly the way it should have in that experience.
Except for the hospital.
Well, hospitals are hard. End of story.
Hospitals are hard.
Well, the hospital scene was the location changed like 5 different times, and literally like day of. So we had to like always find something else to shoot. So when we finally got a chance,
indie.
Yes. Well, and when one of the local hospitals got a hold of me and gave me permission to use the hospital, the floor that we shot on, I remember having to tell everybody, it's like, okay, here's the deal. They just gave us 2 hours. So we have to go in.
And it was like a month later too. That was the hardest part for me, is like we had wrapped everything else. And then suddenly we're like in the literal heat of the moment again. It was like, it was crazy because I had to re-dye my hair for that one.
Yeah, you did. I remember that. I got to told everybody, we got to the hospital and it's at St. Mary's. Let's go. And we literally I was given the date. I didn't get to say, well, can we do it this date? No, it was like, you can do it this day. It has to be at this time. And I told everybody, it's like, okay, here's the deal. If y'all don't show up, I can't shoot this. And everybody just doubled down and showed up. And then John's grandmother, we got into the hallway, and John's grandmother, we found out, got brought in an ambulance to that very hospital. And so I
forgot about that.
Yeah, we had to shoot all of his stuff. And literally the conversation between him and Dana, him and the doctor, was shot 3 weeks later in my kitchen with green screen. So yeah. So what was your takeaway from Silence? I want to transition over to another project. But at the end of Silence, what was your takeaway as an actress from that experience and that character?
Walking away from filming itself, I feel like I was super excited to have like a new fresh project under my belt in a different medium, and walking away with friends that like I love deeply. We don't really talk much anymore, any of us, but like walking away with those memories and that experience, I was really excited for, and like nervous to see the outcome, because like for a stage actor, 9 times out of 10, you don't get to see the work that you're doing. You just hear the feedback and you move on. And so I was pretty nervous to like see the outcome. But I remember being like, there are some moments in that movie where I feel like I could have done better. And I won't get into that, but like there are also moments where I'm like super proud of myself for delivering in the way that I did. And I think walking away from that just made me want it more. You know what I mean? Made me want to work harder for it. And like life stuff got in the way, but like I still feel that way every time I watch one of my movies again. I'm like, oh, I could have done that better, but I also did this really well. And I want to like, I think that was the important part for me, is like, I can always improve. Like I'm not stuck the way that I thought I was. And I can always continue to move forward and try new things and like get better at my craft with each project. So that's kind of like my takeaway from it now, several years in the future, thinking back on it now, that's what I'm thinking now.
Yeah, that's a very good approach. Like as an artist, we have to keep not just to keep improving, but to keep reminding ourselves that we still have room to improve. But also we tend to be very, very critical, of our own work a lot of the time. And it's nice to be able to also let go of that sometimes and be, proud of our projects and go, well, it's not perfect. Could have done it better, but this is the best we could do at that time. And it's still pretty damn good. So yeah, that's very healthy. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just as filmmakers, I mean, we do that. It's like, okay, I did this on this last one. What am I going to do differently on the next one?
Everything's a learning experience.
Yeah. And if you don't learn, then you got a problem, in my opinion. So, listening, Brii, to you, talk about wanting to do better and wanting to get better and knowing what things you want to change and stuff. That's always refreshing to hear. There's nothing worse than somebody who thinks they've got it down and they don't need to they don't need to do any homework to get any better. They've got where they're at, and I don't know. I've run across that multiple times with people, and it's like, oh no, really, you got some fucking homework to do. Okay, really.
And going to like doing theater in Junction and like having directors, you know, I had the same directors for several years. Like pretty much you get to a point where everybody knows who you are and they know what you're good at. And for me, that was like the funny, like cute comedic relief characters. Like that's where I got stuck in high school. So I would always get, and I'm like, I'm not trying to like shit on it or anything like that. I definitely learned a lot. And I would say to this day that that's what I'm still my best at because I've been doing it the longest. And so being able to go into silence and have this like serious, sexy, like just like complete opposite character of what I was so used to playing, and being able to do as well as I did do with it makes me feel good about like improving and learning and like, you know, because I was stuck before that, but I don't feel stuck anymore. Like throw me through the ringer, give me another part that I can try to dissect and figure out, because that's what's fun about acting is getting a new project where you haven't done the character before in a different voice or whatever, and like see what you can do with that, knowing what you know. And like, if it sucks, but you learned from it. So like, that's the best part about it for me. Boom.
Yeah.
Well, and also you don't really get typecast or pigeonholed because all of your characters are different from film to film. I mean, going from Silence to You Like to Draw, it's like completely different characters. And the level of difficulty, you know, at pulling them off would have been pretty high for different reasons, but still you did such a good job. And again, I keep telling Todd that I'm always surprised when I see his films, especially the dramas, because you know, horrors and thrillers, they're sort of a different breed, because there's a lot of them out there, but in indie there's not so many dramas that especially in feature films. And both of those like are so like really, really good. And for you also would have been the move from being you were one of the main characters in Silence, but probably the like second main character, I would say. And here, you know, it was all on your shoulders really, and in a tough role in You Like to Draw.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you did really well there. You know, again, making it believable. That's really a tough one, you know. So kudos to you. You did really, really well in that one.
Thank you.
As well. Oh yeah, with indie drama, it's just, I guess, doubly hard, I think, to pull off a film that works. It's just a lot more sort of the intricacies of it, and the believability factor is a lot less sort of easily forgiven for a viewer. If it doesn't work in a drama, the whole film doesn't work. Whereas if it's a horror film or a thriller, it's a lot more, you know, forgivable. So those two films, you know, Silence and You Like to Draw, were, I guess, in a way, even more impressive because of the genre. And before I watched the films, I was looking at the length of the film, and I was like, "Ooh, that's a bit long." I was like, I don't know if this is
I keep getting
out.
told that. Everybody's like, you need to shave that back. You need to I'm like, no, there's nothing to cut out. I've already cut everything out.
If they say it after watching the film.
How long did you like to drop them out to?
An hour and 54 minutes. And
like a
Silence.
normal length movie.
And
not for indie. Not for
indies.
Indie's usually a lot shorter. Yeah.
Fair enough.
But that's the thing. When I looked at the length of the film before watching the film, I thought that. And once I watched the film, I was like, you know what? I didn't feel like it was a 2-hour long film. You know, it all went by fairly fast. So I'm like, you know, these things tend to be for directors or editors. It tends to be, it's choices. Different directors, different editors will make different choices, and that's fine. For me personally, I may have made the film shorter just for that choice, for having a shorter film, but not so much that I can think of scenes that I would have cut out, because it really worked for me. You know, that was one of the things in the You Like to Draw review that came up, was that it didn't feel like a long film. It wasn't, at any point a struggle to watch it. Actually, that wasn't in a review. That was in a conversation you and I had, Todd, after I watched it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mentioned to you that I was a little bit worried about, would I be able to, would it still hold my interest for the whole way through? And it did. It's like all of a sudden I'm at the end of the film and I'm like, oh, that didn't feel long.
Yeah.
And that's where I knew that, you had a good film on your hands, because a lot of the time, especially, well, not only with indie, but especially with indie, it's sometimes a struggle if a film is over even an hour and a half.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of it depends on the film and depends on the acting.
Absolutely.
Brii.
I was going to say, I think like the writing really, because I mean, I feel like it was like a million years to film, but like, I also don't really remember having an issue with the length of it when we watched it the first time at the premiere. And I think like a lot of that has to do with the pacing of the writing, which is like always super important. Is like, you got to know when to have your slow moments and when to have your more upbeat moments. You got to know how to keep an audience captivated. And that's something that I think Todd is actually really super good at, is pacing out the script in that fashion.
You mentioned how long it took to shoot. How long did Silence take to shoot? As far as shooting days, not as far as, from when you started.
Shooting days, it was not consecutively, but it was 18 days. And that was
I would have guessed 16, so I was close.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was just because of that. Literally, it was because of the hospital.
But that makes sense for a feature film, close to 2 hours long. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And what about you like to draw?
I remember Silence, the bulk of filming was done within like 2 weeks, I feel. And then with You Like to Draw, I'm pretty sure we only had a week because I flew in for it. So
it was 9 days. We shot You Like to Draw in 9 days. But we also didn't run into any issues in regards to locations. Because, well, I paid for all of them except for the church. So that way, there's no way that somebody could say, oh, well, you can't shoot at my house now. It was like, or you can't shoot at the hospital and you can't shoot here and blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, we did 9 days consecutively. And then I had a couple of pickup days. And then Brii actually had moved back from West Virginia or
South Carolina.
South Carolina. Sorry. I try to forget those years.
Yeah, me too.
But and she actually, I needed her to do some ADR work, and she hopped in the car, and she had just moved back to Denver. And she hopped in the car and drove over here, and we sat here in the studio, and she did her ADR work for the first scene where she talks with Nina, and nailed it. I mean, I think we did 3 or 4 takes just to do different, just the way she said it, just to have her say it differently. But so yeah, what I wanted to ask you then about You Like to Draw was, how did you dig into
on Tubi?
Available right now on Tubi. Also, also on Amazon Prime, but we don't talk about Amazon because they don't give us hardly any money. So
watch it on Tubi.
Yeah, watch it on Tubi. We make way more money doing it that way. When I hit you up for You Like to Draw, and just for those of you who are watching that may not have seen the movie, it's basically about a young artist who has a car accident and sustains a traumatic brain injury. And it affects her speech, it affects her movement and everything. And she gets a new caregiver within the beginning of the movie, and somebody who's very social media driven, basically social media is her existence. And so they kind of both have this little selfish streak going to them, and the two of them wind up becoming very, very good friends. And it's not a spoiler alert or nothing, but it's kind of one of those things they kind of learn from each other. So if you want to watch that, it's on Tubi. But when we talked about the role, can you tell me a little bit about what kind of prep? I mean, I know I sent you videos and stuff, but I'm sure there's things that you got ready for the part that I didn't get to hear about.
Well, I remember when you initially reached out to me about the role, I was like hesitant to take it on because I felt like I wasn't quite ready for something like that. Mm-hmm. And I remember you were talking about Leonardo DiCaprio and
Gilbert Grape.
Yeah.
What's it in Gilbert Grape? Yeah.
And I remember being like, I don't know if I can really truly pull this off. It feels like it could be offensive for me to even try. And I was like, well, I can give it a go anyway. And like, I did like so much freaking research for that movie, dude. Like I was watching like videos and movies of like people with real brain injuries. And I was like, well, it's different for everyone. You know what I mean? And like, and I think that I can represent that without being offensive. And that was something that like was really super important to me, was not like being a dick about it. Like that was like a big deal to me, was like making sure that I represented the struggle without making it seem like shitty. And yeah, I mean, just like hours, I put lots of time into studying that one. I don't know if I took notes or anything like that. I could see if I could find something like that, but that would be a long time coming.
No, it was kind of one of those things though, that, I mean, I had been around brain injured people for many traumatic brain injuries, people with traumatic brain injuries for many years. I mean, when I lived in California, my first interaction with traumatic brain injury was doing some DJ work for the Betty Clooney Center. The Betty Clooney Center was named after Rosemary Clooney, the singer and actress.
George Clooney's
no, not George. Is that his aunt?
I think so.
Oh, okay. I didn't even put two and two together on that one, but Rosemary Clooney's sister, Betty Clooney, had a skiing accident in the early 70s and sustained a traumatic brain injury. And she had started this foundation, and the foundation turned into a place for people with traumatic brain injury to have a place to get together and have, so they're not just feeling like they're the only ones with this issue. So it was important for me as well to make sure that, and I was with you 1,000%, Brii, on that one, is to make sure that we represented traumatic brain injury to the T. And something that happened after the fact, after we finished filming, Hunter's mom, Katie Voss, she had a small part in the film. She was Adrian. She was the lady behind the counter at the physical therapy place. She works and has worked with traumatic brain injury. There's a place here called the Life Adjustment Program, which I kind of melded this place that I wanted the character to move into. The place that she wanted to go live was kind of modeled after the Life Adjustment Program. So yeah, Brie, it was important for me too that we didn't screw this up. And Katie was just like, after we were done, she just comes up to me. She didn't say it in front of everybody and anything. She just leaned over and she goes, "Just FYI, you killed it. All of you guys." She goes, "You guys nailed it." And she said, especially Brie, she said she did exactly. I mean, she goes, at times, she goes, "I thought she was." I thought she did have traumatic brain injury. So kudos to you, Brie. That,
funnily enough, that's like the greatest compliment for an actor.
Really,
That you
honestly.
had brain injury.
Yeah, I remember Katie like being really super supportive of me during that shoot because I was super like I was going through some shit during that whole shoot. I mean, all the way from like when you casted me in it to like when we actually filmed it and beyond. Like even when I don't know if I came up or if I had just gotten back for the premiere. Like I just like had a tough year, and I was very like a little bit more self-conscious of my capabilities than usual, I guess, for that one. And I remember like Katie was like my rock for that one. Like honestly, she was like my set mom for a little bit there. Her and Krista actually were like hella supportive of me through that whole process, which I deeply appreciated.
yeah, well, it was one of those things, you know, I got it, I understood it. And, you know, I know there were times that you and I kind of butted heads on things. But what it showed was, even though you had all these things going on, that you pulled the professional out and said, "Okay, you know what? I'm here to do a job." And you did it. So, I mean, regardless of whatever you were going through, it was one of those things that when we were watching, as I was editing, I was just like, wow, holy shit. I remember what happened that day. I remember what was going on with her that day. And you know, you proved that you could, you know, get past that, you know, and you and I have had those conversations before too. Just, you know, look, you're amazing, you're awesome. And, you know, all of us as artists, I kind of feel like we need somebody every so often to just, you know, you're doing good. Come on, just keep going. I mean, how do you feel about that, Brie?
I mean, yeah, it's extremely important to have like a support network of people like that you trust to give you an honest opinion enough to be able to trust when they say, "Hey, you did good." Like you can trust that. I think it's super. And like Itai said before, it's like artists are always going to be their own worst critics, you know? And like it's super hard to change that, because if you think you're the best of the best, you're going to be a dick and nobody's going to want to work with you. But you also want to believe in yourself enough to try anyway. Mm-hmm. So I think it's super important to have that support network behind you, people that'll tell you like, "Hey, you're doing great. Like, keep it up. Like, don't stop." Like, that's something that's been super important to me. Like, that's why I like going back and doing the theater camps for kids and like working with the younger people like Hunter and Rose. And I love working with those kinds of people because I want to tell them like, "Hey, look, don't ever give up on yourself, because you shouldn't do that. You need to keep going. You're going to regret it if you don't." So like, that's like something that's super important to me, is reminding people anyway that
Absolutely.
they're good enough.
And this line of work is just, it's so easy to want to quit, you know, because it's so hard, but the reward is there if you keep at it.
Yep.
I agree with that.
And funnily, like as you were talking about the role in You Like to Draw, got me thinking the level of difficulty with that role was already there, you know. And if you were going through a tough time personally around that time, I'm thinking that would have made it doubly hard. But at the same time, maybe you did bring a lot of that into the role. So in some ways, that could have actually been a positive that sort of helped you, find that place that you needed to be in some parts of the film. In parts of the film, the character is, while she's going what she's going through, she's still very positive and confident, I want to say, and in other parts, obviously as being human, it gets to you. You think, this is never going to end. I'm never going to get back to normal. And how am I going to deal with this? I don't want to be here anymore. And you did bring all of that into that role. So yeah, that was excellent. So maybe what you were going through at the time ended up helping. I'm not sure, but I mean, you would know. I would. Yeah.
I'm thinking about it because every time we talk about, like when we were talking about silence, we were talking about you like to draw, I keep relating like the thoughts that I was kind of having during filming and stuff like that back to like personal things that are going on in my life. And I know like that is something that I try to do as an actor, is take from real experience and put it into, my acting to kind of to give it that extra spice
believability
it needs.
Mm.
And I just keep thinking about it every time we get to talking about one of them. I'm like, oh, hey, I was thinking about something and it translated. So every time you mention something like that, I'm like, you know what? I did all right. I tried.
No, you did very well. And the thing is also there are some similarities between not so much the roles, but the dynamics of those two films, because we were talking about how believable it was that the four of you were real friends in Silence, but also that you and Rose Bonino were sisters in You Like to Draw, because you don't really look like sisters, but the dynamic of the way you guys acted with each other, it was like that was really a nice touch, really, really worked. And ultimately both films are, when you strip it all down, they're really about friendships. So, now talking about it, it's kind of, my brain keeps sort of going, you know what, they really are. And that really came across in both films. And that's definitely a credit to, to all the actors involved. That was really good.
Yeah, we kind of had like a similar bonding experience on You Like to Draw as we kind of did with Silence. Obviously it was different because it was all different people, but like Mariah and I have known each other since middle school, never really super close, but we definitely talk all the time now. And like every time I come to visit Junction, I also make a point to see her. And then like, I have a younger sibling myself. So I have this like, I don't know, sisterly instinct to like take the younger people under my wing and like show them the ropes and protect them. So I feel like kind of like that's how I feel with Rose, is I feel like her older sister, like in real life. And like every time we weren't filming, we were all like hanging out and talking and laughing and having a good time. So I'm glad that those relationships translate well on film.
They definitely
well, that's some of my favorite stuff in that movie is the dialogue between you and Rose. Especially like at the very beginning, it's not a lot of dialogue in regards to you, but you can tell it's the sisters that are kind of ganging up on the mom, so you've this traumatic brain injury you've had for a couple of years, but it hasn't stopped you from being a sister. And so, some of my favorite exchanges are just with you and between you and Rose, and your just banter back and forth.
The Craigslist conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. That was my favorite. I'm almost every time I watch it, I wish I would have had two more cameras running to be able to get some different angles and to get some of the reactions from that we had from you, Brii, and from Deborah Lamb, who played the mom, and it was
she was fantastic.
Yeah, she did great too. She did great. I'm super proud that we got to give Deborah her first real dramatic role. You know, her. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and again, physically, the three of you could not be related, but for some reason it worked. It's like your acting skills, all three of you, made it believable. You know, which is really what film is all about. I mean, we can't really cast families, can we?
No,
sometimes.
No.
So yeah, so that was really, really good. You know, all three of you. You know, for me, when I watch the movie, it's like if any one of the three of you would not have been believable, the film would have kind of crumbled, I think. So because just so much of the story and of the script and the weight of some of those scenes really is on all three of you actually at different times. So yeah, so you guys did really, really well. And I am actually a pretty tough sort of critic on acting, and you know, just from my own personal preferences.
Yes, you are.
I am, and you can ask Todd. I do tell the truth when I you know, when I don't think something is sort of up to par. But with you guys in those two films, as soon as I watched them, my response was, wow, you know, you guys did really, really well, because the level of difficulty again is so high in both those films for different reasons, and both times I really enjoyed those films. So yeah,
Thank you.
well done.
I really appreciate that.
Well, and that's, you know, and you carried that, Brii. So, you know, kudos to you. Pat yourself, brush your shoulders off, do what you can do. So yeah, it's definitely, and yes, Itai, when I handed that over to you to watch, I have never been more terrified in my existence. Even showing it, having the premiere was not even remotely as terrifying as it was handing that movie over to you, because I thought, if he doesn't like this, I am screwed.
Is that because you think I'm a harsh critic, or is that because you know I tell the truth?
Both. Both. I mean, it's not, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, you know, I give you shit about it, but in all honesty, I just know that the things that are wrong with it, I'm going to hear about, and I already know what some of the things are, but it's, you know, it's kind of one of those things. But then the fact that the list of pluses and the list of negatives was definitely not what I was expecting. So,
and sometimes when I watch a film, my list of negatives might be longer, but they're actually smaller things. So the positives, even though it's a shorter list, they might be much bigger. So I would still love a film. So for me, it's not always about, you know, trying to balance that out. It's really about the feeling I get after, you know, having finished watching a film and then going, you know, how do I feel about this? You know, was this tough to watch? Did I enjoy it? Did it get to me? Because with You Like to Draw, there are scenes that are just very, very touching. You know, I remember reading a lot of the reviews saying, you know, keep your tissues ready and all of that. I don't often, you know, cry in films. So for me, it wasn't about, you know, tissues, but it still got through. And that is really, really good. You know, I don't get that a lot, and I definitely don't get that a lot with indie. So, you know, and some of my, yeah, definitely high fives all around. But when you know, when I watch a film and you know, either critique it or just give feedback, it's it's really just about that. Even if I have, criticism, because a lot of people tell me this, I don't see it that way, but they say that I'm a perfectionist with my films.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true or not, but maybe. But when I do it, I try to do it also constructively, so I don't just bash
Don't just rip
film
something apart.
Yeah, exactly. I
Unless
say,
it's Texas Chainsaw 2022.
yeah. And even then, I was trying to be subtle. That was a first episode of this show. So
yeah.
I remember seeing the title for it.
But yeah, we didn't love it.
No, we didn't. In fact, that's our first episode. Go back to our channel, The Straight Shooter Show, on YouTube.
Like a
Brii,
fake fan.
What's that?
I feel like a fake fan. I see the titles, I subscribe, but I don't watch. Guess what I'm binging this weekend?
Well, and that's
You'll
okay.
be watching this episode.
Well, no, not yet. I'm not going to have it ready that quick.
It's probably going to take at least a week.
No. When it's ready, I mean, Brii will be watching this one, if not any of the other ones.
Oh,
so,
yeah. Yeah. So Brii, can you talk to me about which one of the scenes was your favorite to shoot and you like to draw?
The one where you say that's a wrap.
Precisely.
Which one?
In terms of what precisely, like acting, filming, like I guess that's a really bad way to phrase that.
Yeah. Okay, as an actress, what's your favorite scene in the movie? So why don't we start there and then go from there?
Well, in terms of like, because I've only seen it the one time at the premiere, so I don't really remember that well. But
you should check it out again. It's on Tubi.
Yeah, I need to get around to it, obviously. Don't know what my own movies look like anymore. But, that scene, in terms of filming, my favorite scene to film was the scene when we're all like around the fire pit in the backyard. And I'm kind of like, I finally kind of pop off on everybody and I'm like, sis, take me away.
Right.
Filming that. And like, honestly, anytime I got to work with Rose, because we didn't really have a whole lot of scenes together to establish that relationship that we had with each other. But anytime that we did get to work together, I feel like you had to shush us a lot. So like in terms of like BTS favorite stuff to film, working with Rose was probably my favorite. And
nice.
In terms of like acting, that scene by the fireside is my favorite.
What about, okay, so let's maybe venture a little ways away from Todd's projects necessarily, since I don't want to make this all about everything that Brii's been in for my movies. I mean, do you have any other projects that you want to bring up that you've worked on in the past that you're proud of, or that you want to bring up?
Well, I mean, like, okay, so like my favorite theater to do is Shakespeare because I'm really weirdly good at it. That's something that I do like outside of Mr. Todd, but the only feature films I've done are with you. So everything else has been shorts or theater.
Okay.
But Shakespeare, I competed in high school at the Utah Shakespeare Festival in Cedar City for 3 years. And in my final year, we took a piece that I'm honestly still super proud of and competed with. It was a duo scene. So it was me and my friend Casey. And we took a scene from Othello, which if you don't know anything about Othello, it's about a Black man falling in love with a noble woman, like a white noble woman. And I'm laughing because we decided, being young, dumb teenagers, that my white ass friend Casey, who is a woman, is going to play Othello, and I was going to play Iago, which is the evil character.
Mhm.
in Shakespeare. And we took it and kind of manipulated it. So like Iago was really in love with Othello and Othello was in love with Desdemona. So Iago was trying to like tear apart their relationship. So we
Okay.
did like the whole gay lovers thing and really played into that and actually got a surprisingly really good response from our audiences and from our judges. When we took that one,
Nice.
we placed first twice and then second in our last room,
Wow.
which is why we ultimately didn't end up getting a spot in the final outcome because of that last room. But like we did really, really good. And like I remember like responses from the audience, like in our second room, somebody took a Juliet and her handmaid scene, which was like Southern Belle style, which was super cute. And they did a super awesome job. But I remember they went before we did, and then we went after them. And I remember the cute little Southern Belle was like, oh, we're definitely not winning this room now. And it's just like that kind of stuff, like that kind of feedback. I really enjoy kind of like, especially with somebody who I feel has done a good job acting. Getting that kind of feedback makes me feel more positive about how I'm doing. So I really like doing Shakespeare and stuff like that. I haven't been in a musical since high school. And I've been working on short student films outside of the feature films I've done with you.
How has that
Which are all on
experience been?
YouTube. It's different. It's definitely nice to like get to work with other directors and see like what kind of equipment the schools, like the different schools provide their students with to use.
Mhm.
So that's definitely interesting, is kind of like seeing how the different dynamics are, which I think has prepared me to kind of jump into some bigger sets maybe here in the near future. Because I kind of know that there's always going to be something different about the technology we're using and how we're going to film it, like how people are going to like, it's definitely, that's the takeaway for me recently, is that every experience is going to be different
Mhm.
because, you know, every artist is different, and it's kind of cool to see how that kind of stuff plays out. My most recent one is called Slaughtered, which is also on YouTube right now by Emily Wright, Danger Rat Productions, which is about it's like a horror comedy about a like web show where a serial
It's kind of
killer
a
like
reality
murders
show,
somebody.
yeah.
Like, yeah, like a reality TV show for murdering. Yay.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'll definitely check it out. I
Yeah,
haven't seen
that
it,
one.
so I'll be looking for it
I
after we talk.
I watched it. I watched it a few weeks ago, and she sent me the link, and it was kind of one of those things. I looked and I was like, it was just different to see Brie in something that I hadn't done. So, it was, and I looked and I went, okay, that was good. That was good. She played the host. She played the web host really well. So if you need somebody to do a reality TV show, Bree's your girl.
Apparently.
It's actually somewhat, I guess, refreshing, to hear that after having made, 2 feature films with Todd, and well, I know you're working on other projects with Todd as well, but that you still go and do student projects, because I know a lot of actors tend to kind of go, I did student projects before and I'm never going back to that again. And I just keep reminding them, and I say, look, student filmmakers that you'll be working with now will be making features not so far down the track. So, if you want to get those roles,
honestly,
maybe you should.
Fresh takes from the younger people. Like that was a thing for me working on Slaughtered, was like, I walked in and I was like, this is a good way to jump back into the acting game after being sort of away from it for so long. And I walked in and I was like, you guys are a bunch of like, just got out of high school, fresh into the college game students. Like these are 18, 19-year-olds. And I know like saying that, sorry, but like walking in and having like had the life experience that I've had already, and being like my age, I was like, I feel out of my depth now, because I feel like I've kind of grown past that age range. But also, young people can have the freshest ideas sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they haven't been like weighed down by the thoughts and opinions of themselves and others for so long, that they just come in and they're like, well, what if we try this instead? And you're like, hey, that's actually kind of a good idea. So getting to kind of learn that kind of stuff too, and get to know the film industry in Denver was nice. Definitely liked doing that and getting to know them, like, at least on a base level, you know what I mean? Because like 90% of our industry to begin with is networking, getting to know people, finding people who can help you find people who can help you find people. Like, that's 90% of what it is. So
and student films, they help you, it's almost like between maybe bigger film roles, your training kind of, helps keep you fresh. And like you say, it is refreshing and interesting. It also helps keep you humble. A lot of not just the actors, also directors, tend to kind of sometimes get a bit bigger than they are in their own head, and then it comes across, and that's never a good thing. So definitely the right approach you have there. So that's excellent. But talking about future projects, I got a sneak peek at a certain scene from an upcoming horror film by a certain Todd Brii, Shadows of the Night. Actually, Todd can tell you what my reaction to that was after I saw that.
I'll let you tell her. I want you to tell her.
My first comment was just, I was like, is that Brii? He's like, yes, it is. I was like, wow, that was like, I was saying that you really put your all into that scene. It looked like you were really, really in it, made it believable. I mean, I guess we can spoil and say that it's kind of an exorcism scene, because it's sort
of like the whole plot of the movie.
The whole plot of the movie is circles around an exorcism video. So so if the rest of the film will be as good as that scene, then definitely looking forward to seeing that. Even in that such a short scene that I saw you in, that you did really well. And again, it's such a departure from the two feature dramas. So you are a bit of a chameleon, I guess, in that way, which is always good for actors to be, do different roles and get good at doing all these different types of characters. Is you're well on your way, I think.
Thank you. I hope so.
Yeah, well, like you said, if you keep at it, you're definitely, sky's the limit. I mean, it's only about how well, the future roles you'll get will be written. If they're well written, then I'm fairly confident that you'll do well in those.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was one thing when I came up with that idea. I went, "Hey, Brii, can you play somebody who's possessed by the devil?"
Always how it starts, isn't it? "Hey, Brii, can you do this?
Can you do this?"
Yeah. Hey, Brii, can you be possessed? Can we put a demon in you? What do you think?
And to you, I say, let's just go for it. Every time.
Every time.
So
every time.
So would you like to draw was "Hey, Brii, can we give you a brain injury?"
Yep, pretty much.
I remember that one. I remember I said to her, "Hey, Brii," I said, "Do you think you could play somebody with a traumatic brain injury?" "What do you mean?"
I already do that day to day. What are you talking about?
But I mean, she never says no. She always questions, which as an actor you should, but she always she asks the right questions as a performer. She's always hitting those right notes in regards to, before you dive into something. And that's one thing I respect a lot about her, is because she does ask questions, and okay, how far is this going to go? What is this person going to do? And then what goes on in her brain, I have no clue after that, but
but it's good. She wants to get to know her characters, and that's always a good sign. And also, it's what you mentioned before is the one advice that I always give actors who come to me for advice, and I always say, one on top of my list is never say no. Always, first of all, say maybe, let me take a look at this, or yes, this sounds good. Because the more roles, the better you'll get. So even if it's not necessarily, it doesn't end up being a great film necessarily, you can still put in a great performance. So for actors, it's always good for your filmography, and that's always how I kind of put that across to actors. But I have a question that hasn't been asked yet today, and should have been, I guess. What can you tell us about working with that director that you've done a lot of work with, that Todd Brii guy? What's it like working with him?
I like working with Todd because he's never like super married to a script or how he feels like a character should come across. So getting a little bit of that artistic freedom as an actor, I feel like is very, very beneficial to his movies, because then you get people who bring their own thing to the table and end up making it work so much better than it maybe could have if Todd was a little bit more rigid with his original script ideas. And I think that's something that that is very important for me as an actor. And also Todd's very serious. And not like the kind of way that like you're like, oh, this is like a dangerous kind of serious that you don't want to work with, but in like a way that he will answer all of my stupid mundane questions without being like, oh, that's a stupid mundane question. He'll be like, you're asking a question that I feel like your character would think of, or like you as an actor would think your character would think of, and he'll answer them no matter what. And he always keeps going. Like he's willing to tough it out even when it gets hard. And that's something that's also important, because I have been a part of projects that have fallen apart, and it's nice to know that when I'm working with Todd, we're working together and not like against each other. Like even when I'm having like a crazy day where I'm not doing my best mentally, emotionally, he's like, hey, go take your 10 minutes and figure it out, and then you can come back. And he lets me come back, which is nice because not everybody would do that. So I do appreciate his humanity and his seriousness, and I appreciate his creativity as an artist. I like the projects that he comes up with.
Yeah, that's
Thanks.
awesome.
Thank you.
Because the one thing that came across was Todd, you earlier mentioned that you kind of butted heads a little bit on You Like to Draw, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And still, a lot of directors, if they butt heads with actors, they tend to not want to work with them again. But this isn't the case here. So the butting of heads, maybe brings sort of, the best out of the both of you, I guess.
Well, I don't know. I mean, with Brii, I think some of it just comes down to
passion.
Well, but I also know that, occasionally, and everybody has a day or 2 days when you're shooting.
Or 6.
And that, but it's understood. It's not like, something happens and I have to say, look, Brii, come on, let's, and like you said, Brii, take your 10 minutes, go do your thing, and get it together and then come back, because fighting, I mean, like downright just being a prick doesn't work. It doesn't, you're not solving anything. And Brii and I butted heads on things that really didn't have anything to necessarily do with the movie. It was just kind of one of those, there was stuff going on, and I knew what was going, and I knew that she had things going on. Nothing that we're going to bring up, but it's just one of those things. I knew that she had stuff going on, and it was like, okay, look, I need you to do this. I need you to do this. And I need you to do this. You can be mad at me if you want, but I need you to do it. And again, she took the professional route every time. And, we always hugged it out at the end. So it wasn't, it wasn't anything it's never anything that you can't get over, I mean, creative differences. I always hear about stuff like that on sets where the directors and the actors have creative differences. Well, to me, it comes down to what's going to make the best movie, not whether or not I'm going to stick to my guns. And I'm the only thing and Brii, you can back me up on this because I'm pretty sure that I haven't done this, but the only thing that I ask is that I'm not married to the dialogue, but the storyline, don't do anything to change the storyline. Because I take a lot of time to figure those things out before I even start writing the script. I mean, if I'm right about that, Brii, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like during the script writing process, you'll take like notes and criticisms, but I think like once we have a script on lock, you're like, okay, major plot points aside, say what you're going to say. I think that makes it easier to say lines more naturally rather than like you're reciting from a script. So, yeah.
As I always say, artistic differences should be dealt with in rehearsal.
Right.
Not when shooting. By the time we get to the set, everybody's, read the script, acted it out, done all that. There shouldn't be any major changes coming in at that time.
I agree.
If anything, it should have come up earlier. It saves time, and time is just so important, on a shoot. When you fall behind, it can be sort of catastrophic. So,
yeah.
So it's a tough one, but yeah, it's always important that everybody does the best they can, for the film. It should be about the film, as Todd and I have discussed so many times. It shouldn't be about egos. And it, sometimes on a lot of sets, it happens to be that. But yeah, we're not big fans of that approach.
Well,
it's really like shooting yourself in the foot.
And that's one thing that I've always tried to do in regards to my projects. And I always, you got to put your ego off to the side, because it doesn't do anything. I don't care how many movies you've done or how many projects you've done, it's about the project. It's about getting this project done. And that's one thing I can always count on Brii, is that she's, regardless of whether I pissed her off or she pissed me off, or if I pissed anybody off, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, so is everybody over? Are we all over our things? Let's go back to work.
I know we're shooting a film, but no drama.
Yeah. Well, and I always, wasn't I always say, Brie, keep all the drama in front of the camera, not behind it.
Yeah.
True.
So, well, is there anything else that you want to talk about, Brie? Any other projects? Do we need to talk about Shadows anymore, or is that, have we kind of?
I don't know. Do you feel good about it? When are we going to see a trailer, Todd?
Yeah, Todd.
I'm working on it. I've got about 15 seconds of it put together. So I'm trying to get, well, I've restarted it 5 times. So I was started it one way and I wasn't happy with it. And then I changed up to do something else and I didn't like that. And same thing and same thing and same thing.
People don't realize that editing a trailer is sometimes like making a short film.
It's
the
harder.
trailer has to tell a story.
Yeah, it's harder than making a movie, or it's harder than editing a movie because you know where the movie's going. Whereas with the trailer, and especially a teaser trailer, you know, it's not like I can just have the Enterprise come out of, you know, have the doors open up and see the USS Enterprise come out and go, oh, another Star Trek movie. It's there's got to be more to it than that, especially with the indie film stuff. So I'm working on it.
And teasers tend to be about what we can't show, not so much about what we can, and that's really tough.
Oh, and it was cool because Brie, when we shot that, you know, we were trying to figure out what level we wanted her to be at. And when you do exorcism stuff, you just don't want to copy. I mean, it's been done and it's been, you know, The Exorcist has been done. It's like, what can I do to not copy that? What can I have Brie do as an actress that is not going to copy, you know, The Exorcist, or, you know, so we went with the, I want to say, I don't want to say we copied The Conjuring, because even then I still don't feel like we did. We did our own version. I think I showed her the Exorcism of Emily Rose. I showed her a section of that, and I said, I don't want to copy that. I just want the energy. And I wrote this short script of stuff that I wanted her to say. And then I think we shot 4 takes of that.
I think so. 4 or 5, maybe.
Yeah. But she just, on the first take, man, she was balls to the wall, dude. It was like, when I yelled cut, I had to say, she was in such the throes of this chaos that was going on.
I remember that from the video.
Yeah.
From the video, you said it's a cut, and then they cut. which again shows the intensity that everybody went down into and doubled down on, and you know, and so then for each take you just make a little adjustments. Okay, don't get all crazy at first, let it build up, let's make this slow burn. And so it's gonna be, it's basically about a kid who sees an exorcism video online, and the woman in the video proceeds to talk to her, like almost addressing her through the computer from this video. And then this spirit.
Can't wait to see how that turned out.
Cheyenne did really good. I think I'm going to bring her back and do a couple extra shots for it. But she, because she hadn't watched the video, and so when we shot her watching the video, she hadn't seen it. She didn't even know what to expect. And when,
Authenticity.
yeah, so when you say the character's name, and she just, the look on her face was like, and I'm like, okay. And I had 2 cameras going, and I said, okay, now turn. And so she turned, and then I had this camera over here picking her up over here, and and then you kept yelling the character's name, and she just like totally freaked out about it. And I said, okay,
Jamie.
cut, Jamie. And so she, after we cut, I sat there and I said, okay. I said, so Cheyenne, how was that? She goes, dude, that was scary. So you did your job, Brii. You did your job. You and Peter,
That's all I hope for in life.
Sarah and Brandon all did their gig. So
I feel really good about this one. This is the first time I felt super good about a project in a pretty long time. I'm not gonna lie to you, like 100%. I feel like this is gonna be it, dude.
Oh, this one is going to be. I want to say it's going to be a horror film, but I think it's going to be more of a kind of a psychological horror. I'm not going to get too gory with it, and it's going to be scary, and that was kind of the whole idea behind it, and then when I was throwing out, because Brii and I started talking about it first before I drug anybody else into it, and I said, okay, this is what I want to do. She's like, dude, yeah. And I said, I want you to play the possessed girl. And she's like, oh, okay. And literally our Facebook messages were like one sentence back and forth. And she, and so Brii will probably wind up with a little bit of with a credit under their story by. It'll be me and her and Jaden. We'll have our story by credits because she's brought some good ideas to the table. So this one should be fun. So
well, the thing about the exorcism scene as well, you had to shoot that as a one take, right?
Yeah, I did. I only ran one camera because we're making it look like it was a Super 8 camera. So a Super 8 camera with sound. I even added the audio into the video. So when it was playing back, you could hear the camera on in the background. You could hear the.
And mine eyes have seen the confusion of the Father.
As the video's rolling, because Jaden took it and made it look like old Super 8 film, like it was like 40 years old. So
Faking it.
Yep, faking it. Yep. And then I just attached a light to the top of the camera and just handheld it. And we shot it at 24 frames, and then Jay has some stuff that he does to make it look even more like old film. So it was something else. So, but you can't do it without the actors. You can sit there and go, oh wow, that looks really cool. Acting sucks, but it looks really cool. But with ours, it was like, my wife made me turn it off. Did I tell you that, Brii? Angie was watching it and she's like, yeah, okay, you can shut that off. Because I had my phone and I was showing it to her from across the room, and she's looking at it. She's like, yeah, okay, good. You can shut that off now. She wouldn't even allow me to shoot it in the house. I had to shoot it someplace else. She's like, I don't want that bad juju in my house. All right. So this is the part of the show, Brii, where we ask you, what do we call them? This or that questions?
Something like that.
We've done
I've
this.
seen interviews like this before.
Okay.
Two options. Choose one.
So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you're just going to answer whatever comes to your mind first.
Okay.
All right. So winning the lottery or finding your soulmate?
Lottery.
Love it.
Ketchup, Ketchup or ranch?
Ranch.
Sauce on the side or sauce on top?
It depends on what. That's not a fair question.
Good response, actually. Yeah.
Zombies or vampires?
Vampires.
Guacamole or salsa?
Guac.
Okay. Boxers or never mind. That's wrong.
Boxers. Definitely boxers.
Nice.
Speeding ticket or parking ticket?
Parking ticket.
All right. Loud neighbors or noisy neighbors?
Loud neighbors or noisy neighbors?
But they're kind of the same.
No,
Yeah,
not
that's what I'm
noisy.
thinking.
No, nosy.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
Did I say nosy? Did I say noisy?
I think you said
I heard
noisy.
noisy.
Okay, loud neighbors or nosy neighbors?
Loud neighbors.
Okay.
I'm with you on that one.
City or countryside?
City.
PayPal or Venmo?
Venmo.
Tattoos or piercings?
Tattoos.
All right, I got two more here. Roller coasters or water slides? Ooh, that's a rough one.
Water slides.
All right. And last one, protagonist or sidekick?
Protagonist.
Well,
Of course.
Obviously.
I want to be
What'd
the
you
star.
think?
Every time I want to be the star.
Always. But if it's a juicy like sidekick, like Harley Quinn, sign me up.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say. If the sidekick has a lot of substance and sort of the potential to steal the show, sidekick.
Either way, I end up being the main character, right? Vibes.
I steal the show either way.
All right, that wraps up our conversation with Miss Brii Frank. Brii, if people want to get a hold of you, if other directors want to get a hold of you to talk to you about possibly playing roles, how would they get in contact with you?
Okay, well, you can email me. It is Brii Frank Actress. That's BRII Frank Actress at gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram. It's at I am da Brii, DABRII, or Brii Frank, pretty much across all social media platforms.
All right. And Itai, do you want to tell everybody how they can get a hold of us if they want to?
Well, they can find us on myindieproductions.com. We both have artist pages there. They can find us via Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And Facebook, you can find us on our personal pages and profiles, or on My Indie Productions page and group, etc., etc.
Or the Straight Shooters page as well.
Correct.
You can
I always
find
forget
us.
about that.
You always forget
The
about that
newest
one.
I
We
forget.
got all these other ones, and we got the Straight Shooters.
And of course, our email, a Straight Shooters email as well. Yeah.
Yep, which is going to be, I believe it's going to be at the
All
top
over
of the
the
screen. Yeah, I put them all over the screen. So thanks, everybody, for watching. Brii, thank you again for coming on the show with us. And it's always a pleasure.
Brii.
Yep, it's always a pleasure to get to have a conversation with you. So looking forward to working with you yet again. And we hope to see you in other projects coming up. So besides mine,
Definitely.
they don't all have to be mine.
Absolutely.
But and so yeah, thanks Brii for hanging out with us, and thank you guys for watching. Once again, like, share, subscribe, comment. Those 4 things that'll help us out quite a bit. right here on YouTube or wherever you're watching us from. We've got a handful of places you can find the episodes. So thanks again for watching the Straight Shooters Show. We will see you next time. On behalf of myself and Mr. Itai Guberman, we will see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel, and same bad time, same bad channel.
Thanks, Brii, and thanks everyone.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah,
It's been
we
fun.
appreciate you coming on. It's been a lot of fun. We'll see you guys again. Good night.